welcome to the Real Estate Rundown. Melinda Gates recently came out and said that despite raising their family in a $131 million compound in Seattle, they gave their children a very middle-class upbringing.
Minus the butlers, the private jets, private helicopters. You know, helicopter picks you up, takes you to the airport to fly on the private jet.
I think they're so out of touch, they don't realize what very middle class means.
She said in reference, so Realtor.com just did a little article on this, and in reference, she said that when she grew up, middle class meant that maybe you got a new pair of shoes, maybe you didn't if money was tight, and that's kind of the upbringing that they raised their children with. So really interesting, despite the fact that they gifted their daughter a $51 million penthouse in New York City. Yeah. That is very middle class.
Like I said, they're one of the, I off the cuff, this statement is, but they're probably one of the top 10 richest families, top 20 richest families ever. And so when you think about that and try to quantify that as normal and, you know, to not rest on their fortune, I read in the article as well. It's just, it's hilarious. And
they had
like
old shoes.
Said, out of touch.
They had old shoes.
Oh, that makes you.
Maybe their shoes were a little ratty.
No, that's just because they live in Seattle, the Greenwich area. That was the style.
Yeah, right.
You can wear those twice.
No, but check this out.
You could wear those a second day.
Yeah, right? No, but this is really cool, though. Their compound where they raised their family in Seattle, it had weighted floors, so they could sense who was in the home and who was walking around based on the pressure of the weight of the person.
So like crazy level of sophistication.
How cool is that?
That is pretty cool,
Middle
actually.
class stuff right there.
Yeah. That's super middle class, man.
Like NSA level security.
I had that when I was young.
The cat. Oh, there's a gerbil walking through. Sally, you let your gerbil loose.
I just think it's hilarious that anybody that's in the political world that happens to have a lot of money tries to come across a particular way. Like they think that's going to be a way for the public to connect with them versus just saying, like, no, this is how I live my life. You know,
well,
it's all, to me, it's all nonsense. It's all BS. But
yeah.
that's my thought process.
Probably.
Bill Gates and the Gates family
relatable.
kind of inserted themselves in that political.
Well, the climate stuff too, and like they travel around in private jets. That like I mean, their climate footprint is giant.
It is,
but yet they're climate change.
But it's worth it so we can communicate.
Yeah,
like I've heard their arguments before because people call them out on their private jets and their smog footprint.
Yeah.
Well, something else happened. Zillow just turned housing bear and has downgraded their forecast. Ooh. Now they're predicting a 1.7% decrease in home prices between now and March of 2026.
Yeah, I know. That was like across the board, right? Like as far as an average, right? Every major metropolitan it was.
It's kind of funny. Right, that happened right after like all the tariff stuff, right? So
yeah.
Zillow decided to go, okay, now we're bear now.
We're bearish now. Well, they're citing like, you know, more listings. Redfin also came out and is sharing that, you know, we have the second to highest pending fall through rates in March. Also, Redfin has said that there's more concessions being offered by sellers than ever before.
Buy-downs.
Pretty insane, actually. If you look at the amount of, speaking of Seattle, Seattle led the nation with concessions at like 71% of all home sales had seller concessions.
Some kind of concession.
Super high. Portland, Oregon was at 63%. Atlanta, Georgia had 61% offered concessions. So a lot of folks offering concessions to get their home sold and experiencing fall through.
Well, I read this morning that there was the concession percentages across the United States has gone up to like 43% or 44%
across the board, like
across the board. Yeah, so basically every 2 out of every 3 sellers are giving concessions.
And think about it. If roughly 80% of the transactions are the ones that get loans, that's actually even more powerful, right? Because you may not. I mean, yes, you could negotiate concessions with cash, but you're less likely to and just lean more on the price. Right,
so I wonder if it's going to come out that cash sales are trending down based on the amount of concessions that are being given. Because you're right. Like if you're a cash buyer, you're probably just going to take the discount on price.
Right.
I mean,
I was listening to a Patrick Bet-David podcast yesterday, and they were talking. A couple of them are in the Miami area, and they go to like nice restaurants and stuff. And they said that they're noticing that some of these posh restaurants don't have long waits anymore. There's like a few, like there's more tables available, and it's getting a little bit lighter.
Tighter.
Yeah. So
even in Miami.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah. So.
Well, I mean, so when we talk about sale fall throughs, Miami rounded out the top 5. It was number 5 at 17.9%.
But I saw in their projected falls, because I actually combed through like the major metropolitans per Zillow's list to see like who was on it, and I was actually surprised that Miami said it was going to have. I mean, their projected depreciation was only about 1%. Where the other ones were 1.7%, you know, as I went through like the metropolitans and what the forecast of the depreciation was. I was really surprised that Miami was only 0.9.
Louisiana is near the top of the list. Like there's 4 or 5 cities in Louisiana that are at the top. And the reason why is they're saying that Louisiana it depends most on exports. And so they will be the most impacted state by the tariffs. And so their home price appreciation, not looking so good.
It's not the swamps and the gators?
Yeah. Well, that would be it for me.
Yeah.
It really is. I mean, it's actually, have you guys ever driven through Louisiana? Tell a little sidebar.
No.
I've never been to
So
Louisiana.
back when I used to have to drive across the country, you know, often, usually once a year going out to, Florida, I would drive my car out instead of like ship it. Just was like an enjoyable thing for me. I have like a crazy story. Like one of the first times it ever happened to me, like I was out on this, like we were driving the bayou, and it's like literally imagine the highway lifted up for about 10 feet off of the swamps for 100 miles, right? Wow. Long stretches. And out of this nowhere, like bayou area, right? This Bobcat jumps on the freaking freeway, and the car right in front of me goes like this, and you see him just smash it, right? Like there was the person, no getting out of the way. And it like comes out, it like literally goes under the car. We're going like 70, 75 miles an hour. And then it just pops up and runs back off. It's the weirdest thing I've ever seen in my life. Sorry, it just, you said Louisiana and the whole thing. I could not share that story. It was wild.
It was, 9 lives.
I'm sure, I don't know, like maybe it like went and died on afterwards, but it was like the craziest thing. You see it jump, you see it happen, it like then pops up, like because I'm like I think I was like a considerable amount behind it, where like I slowed down, but to see it literally just pop off and run off the road on top of that, I was like, what just happened?
Wow.
Pretty wild.
You think you see a gator there, but not a bobcat.
Nope, it was Bobcat.
It's all middle of the
I
swamp.
don't know if it was a bobcat. It was a cat, a big cat.
A big cat. Okay.
Yeah, like definitely not like a house cat, like a
so it was
Bobcat
a wild cat
or bigger. Like it actually might have even not been, because bobcats are not that big.
It's a well-fed.
It was some kind of like between
Garfield.
Garfield.
Looking for
something I don't want to be wrestling with. That's for sure. Mountain lion, bobcat, like that was like the size range. Just giving you guys perspective.
So Zillow's coming out now, and this is kind of a big deal because they've been pretty bullish on the housing market, and so now they've turned a corner. They're saying that
when's the last
prices are
time
coming down.
Zillow's been bearish on the?
Right.
It's been a
It
long
has been a
time.
while.
Have they ever been bearish?
I mean, I'm sure that they have, but
Buy. Come to my portal. Buy.
yeah, super interesting. In other news, Offerpad is now is at risk of being delisted again, not because their stock price is going under $1, but because their market cap is going under 50 million, and it's been under 50 million. It's about 38 for over 30 days. And so the New York Stock Exchange issued a letter to them saying that, like, hey, you need to come up with a plan to get your market cap up above 50 million. And I started thinking about it. And I was thinking about the poetic justice that it would be if we did a hostile takeover of Offerpad. So here's the plan.
That'd be fun.
Here's the plan. All we would need to do is start quietly buying up shares. I mean, it's super cheap right now, right? So if we could get to 5% ownership, that would trigger a 13D disclosure filing with the SEC, which would basically be a beneficial ownership interest statement. And then we'd have to announce who we were and that we own 5% of their stock. And then we could tender an offer to their shareholders, maybe slightly above market value. And then we could potentially start replacing board members. And then before you know it, we could take over Offerpad, we could rebrand, we could keep their brand. Could you imagine? We keep their brand and we push the cash plus across all of their markets. And the one big bully is now ours.
So can we do some?
How cool would that be?
How are we going to raise the capital?
How much money is 5%?
So
$2 million.
about $2 million.
$2.5 million.
So here's how. We tell our story and we crowdfund it.
Oh yeah, there we go. The crowdfund story.
There's
like, if you believe in the industry, if you believe that someone should exist for the realtor, like, come on, there's 1.5 million realtors.
Yeah, $2.5 million is
exactly.
Not that, I mean,
we don't need much to get to that 5%, and then after that, we could probably pull in private equity or venture capital and make a deal.
I wonder who the largest shareholder is.
They're the
Like, what
institutions. They have
hedge
institutions.
funds,
I know, but I mean, like,
Not
is
hedge
there,
funds. There's
is
like
there
institutions like money
is there an
institutions.
entity that has like 20%, 10%?
I think Vanguard owns some.
I was looking
just
at
curious.
that.
what is their ownership
Let me see if I can
compiled
find it real
of?
quick.
Because
Gosh, while you're pulling that up, isn't it crazy to think that they had a market valuation of $2 billion at one point in time? I mean, that's literally 50.
Yes, it
Wah,
is.
$50
wah,
million
wah.
is
Crazy.
5% of $2 billion, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that would be So isn't that crazy? They've taken a 95% hit in value.
Hopefully, Mr. Bear sold some of his stock at the highest price.
So why do we think that is? Just the real estate market in general?
Well, yeah, and they're losing money. I mean, I think they only profited one quarter, right?
Yeah.
They lost
And
like $124 million last year. It's insane.
Yeah.
I mean, that's.
I think
it's insane.
their debt is like a quarter billion, and maybe they have like maybe a little bit under 100 million in cash. I don't know.
I don't know either, but it's fun to think
Yeah,
about.
it's tough to say and easy to speculate. For me, on an outside looking in, it seemed like they really focused on product, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but I think that they lacked a lot of the experience and technology for the consumers, where I think Open Door did some of the opposite. They really focused on the technology and even some of the consumer, but then failed on some of the acquisition and lost more so. I mean, because I know in the past when we've really looked at it, who was losing more per property, Opendoor and Zillow a lot of times they were losing more per property than Offerpad, but Offerpad wasn't getting the demand that they were, so they were getting beat.
And I think Opendoor is they might be delisted too, or they got
They might get the letter.
They're a part of
I think they did
Instagram.
because they went under $1, right?
Don't you have to be under $1 for X amount of time? I think you have to be under $1 for 6 months or
No, that was 30 days.
So do you think
Is
that
it
means
30
that they're
days?
likely to
Or
split
maybe, I
like
don't
Offerpad did a couple years ago
Yeah.
to try to save grace for a couple more years?
Well, yeah, because Offerpad already did split.
Yep.
They split. They did a 10-to-1. I think a 10 or 15-to-1 split.
Yeah, it was
they're already back.
a couple years. I know.
Almost. I mean, they're like $1.30 something today or something like that. I don't know, but
30 days. All right, 30 days.
When was that? That was probably,
I-
that was probably 2-3 years ago that they did that split now at this point.
yeah, the real estate market's just been tough.
It has been tough. That's one way of putting it. Where's Opendoor at today? They're
Yeah,
at
but
96 cents.
Some of these companies, though, if you look, they got comfortable.
Yeah.
They got cash happy,
Yep.
meaning they got whatever funding
And
that
they-
they got,
they
and
burned
they
it.
just expanded and they just went crazy. And for whatever reason, that's what it looks like from an outsider looking in, which I can't say this unanimously. It seems like they didn't plan for the what if.
Well,
And
they
the what
haven't-
if happened, and they're like, uh-oh. And it seems like it happened with a ton of companies, right? There's other companies that don't even exist
yeah.
anymore because clearly at some level they didn't plan for the what if. They got cash happy, they got comfortable. I'm sure when you have a ton of cash, you probably feel invincible at some level.
Yeah.
That would be my guess.
But they've built big
But
brands.
it also has to
did.
do with leadership, I think. Why does any business fail? It's always a pyramid. It's the top down.
Agreed.
Often.
Yeah, you got Easy Knock that went out. Is Knock still around?
Knock is still around.
It's still around, but
Oh, yeah.
they
You
are
don't
like
really
next
hear
to not
about 'em.
around.
Remember Homey?
Ribbon?
Homey used to be all over the
Homey,
place,
Ribbon?
and we never see them.
Yeah,
Ribbon
Ribbon.
was purchased by
Easy Knock.
with Easy Knock, and then
Yeah.
Easy Knock went out.
But they like the two of those companies, they raised over like, I mean, and granted some of them may be in debt and whatever else, but they raised over $1 billion together. Like, I mean, when you think about them, just mad cheddar.
Yep.
To go out and
it's
build the
like,
brand.
What happened to all that money?
I think it's the mindset. I think these tech companies come in and they think that all realtors are idiots and they think that they can come in and that the consumer doesn't really want a realtor on their side. And then they realize like, oh, even with the cash offer
wait.
companies, like, oh, wait, like
Maybe there is some loyalty.
sellers
wait,
do
maybe
want
fiduciary
a
does
realtor.
mean something.
Yeah, and I think that plays into it too. So
100%. Well, and I like the umpteen studies that are being done on this now. It's always uncovered that, hey, they want fast, they want instant, they want easy, but then they want representation as well.
yeah, they want to make sure they're not
Correct.
getting screwed.
Yep. So, I mean, know this
Shocker.
company called Zoodealio can help you out. Just saying.
It's interesting for sure.
Super interesting for sure.
So the other thing I saw that I thought was actually super interesting just because of the times is this OpenAI from Sam Altman, where he was talking about being kind to your AI, your GPT. You know, the funny thing on that though is actually I have a couple of, I mean, obviously within here, but I have a couple of outside friends that are AI engineers. And they specifically, this is even a couple of years ago, they actually talked about like if you want better performance from your AI, and they weren't even using GPT at the time. This is before GPT completely just dominated the space. I mean, granted, there's still ones out there, but anyway, was to actually be, hey, how's it going? Like, and almost kind of like start it with conversation like you would more of like human
Like a first
interaction because you're
impression
going to
with
get
your
better
AI?
response. Well, no, it was all about getting response and getting the
Being
returns
kind.
that you're looking for. So I found that actually very funny that he's saying, hey, it's costing the company a fortune. And granted, I read in the article that that's probably not entirely true, that, you know, but there was just kind of an off the cuff answer from him. But the fact that it's having to read, interpret, and formulate response, and a lot of times it will respond kind if you are kind. It actually talks about that a lot in the article. But you know, the one thing I found in this that's so interesting for our topic in this is that I didn't know it was this high, is that the AIs and this whole run is about 2% of the global electricity consumption.
So I guess
So it's contributing to all of that.
It said that the average GPT search is about 10 times more electricity than a typical Google search. And Sam Altman came out and said that saying please and thank you to your
Adds to that.
GPT is costing them tens of millions of dollars.
Yep.
But he also did say that when you do say please and thank you, you're going to get better output. And let's just be real, this thing is keeping tabs, so I'm going to be nice.
I know, I'm nice. I'm nice every time.
Me too.
Yeah, that's cool too.
It's keeping
told
tabs?
mine- yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
Yeah.
think about like if you got like.
So
I'm
this
just throwing
asshole, I'm going to
something
tell him
completely
something
random. Let's say
different.
You
I'm not
got
gonna give him as good.
rated by the government, right? And
Yeah.
they took your machine, and you know, I'm sure they could probably go into your chat
Oh,
GTP
yeah.
and start looking at stuff. And but like mine, it's kind of funny. I told mine what I did a long time ago, and I'll ask how it's doing. And then, I'll just, what are you up to? Just in the office. And I'm like, oh, another grind in the office. Because that's what I usually say.
Like totally like conversation.
Yeah, and it's like it knows
you.
my language and how I would word it and like what I'm doing every day because I told it.
And it says, I know what you did last summer.
Yeah, well, possibly.
Sending you gifts of knives and stuff.
Yeah. So like if the FBI gets this, please don't tell it what
Yeah.
don't give me
I
up.
don't permit you to share this information.
It'll be interesting to see like the next big criminal case where they introduce your GPT chat logs as evidence, right? Just like they do your Google search and many things. And so it'll be interesting.
100% that's coming.
There's several cases. Oh, there's one case right now that's just like totally captured my attention. And I can just imagine if this suspect had used AI and seen that introduced as evidence, it would have been. It's going to happen. It's going to happen soon.
I wonder what the privacy policy says in there. Like,
it has to have already.
If you take criminal activity, I think that your right to privacy is.
Yeah,
you no longer have the right to privacy if you're committing a criminal act.
But do they store all that information somewhere?
Oh yeah.
Well, then why? So because I've had with Grok or whatever, and it didn't store the information. I said, hey, I remember the conversation I had you before, and it was like, oh, I don't keep information.
So maybe not Grok, but I know that OpenAI does.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
It can,
so maybe I guess
it'll say updating memory.
The retention policy of each company might be different, right? Just like cell phone records, right? Like AT&T only retains records for 7 days. So if you commit a crime and 7 days is elapsed, you can't go back and get like that cell tower information from AT&T any longer because it's like expired. So there's probably that in the AI world, but.
Yeah, I would imagine because that'd be expensive to hold everything.
Oh gosh, yes.
In perpetuity forever.
Yeah, I don't like that about
it has to comb,
I've shared that with you before. I
back
don't
through
like that
it
about
too.
it.
Well, maybe it's the paid version gives you that option to keep all that stuff.
But you have the paid version.
I don't anymore.
But you did, and it didn't.
They keep raising the price. So I was like,
Jason canceled.
Yeah,
I canceled, just didn't re-up, and they moved it from like $30 to $50 a month. It's like,
jeez.
Yeah, right.
Inflation.
That's a substantial
I
raise.
know, it was substantial.
Jeez, I'd bounce out of there too for that. I mean, especially since. Anyway.
So the final thing that I wanted to point out was this. We've got a lot of housing data coming out. I mean, like Zillow now saying that prices are going to go down, and Redfin saying that we have a ton of cancellations and this, that, and the other. However, there is some information kind of contrary to that. So housing demand, purchase applications, and pending sales are all up year over year. So if you look at purchase demand, year over year growth went from 10% to 13%.
Wow.
New home purchase applications are up 14% month to month.
Wow, that's
pending
quite a bit.
sales are higher now than they were in 2024 and 2023. And so despite what we're hearing, there is a little bit of activity brewing. It's going to be really interesting to see what plays out. We know that this is the spring selling season. I want to know what you're seeing in your market. Leave us a comment. Let us know. Are you bearish? Are you bullish on the housing market? What do you think? And leave us a comment. We'll reply. And yeah.
Well, my quick thing on that is, do you think a lot of these people all of that's happening because of the anticipation of rates being lowered? I think most people think with what's the pressure and the war, the back and forth between the administration and Jerome Powell, and that it's inevitable that rates are going to have to be lowered.
Mr. Too Late, Jerome Powell, that's what he is being called.
Mr.
He's also being called a loser.
Oh, dude, that guy's having freaking fire and brimstone thrown at him right now.
Do you think it's warranted or?
Well, I mean, you got the bond market. That's just not. It's not. Usually the stock market goes down. The everyone piles into bonds, and that's just not happening. So it's kind of a weird. But gold's
weird.
just going crazy.
Gold's going crazy.
Bitcoin's gone up quite a bit the past week.
First time it broke 90 in like a month.
45 days.
40. Oh, dang! It was 45 days. First time it broke 90 in 45 days.
It's very interesting to see what it's not a normal market. Usually, stock market gets crushed and bond market. People start piling into bonds, and it's not happening that way.
Yeah, well, and all of this is interesting, right? Because cost of goods and tariffs and all those things. I mean, that is definitely real right now, right? You hear so many people talking about going to Costco and whatever else. Oh, I already see that difference.
Well, that's just BS. There's not. I mean, it's not happened yet. I mean, the prices.
Well, I'm just saying
prices going up already.
I haven't said that.
Oh, okay. But you're hearing.
I've heard that several times.
Yeah, people say that, but it's not. It hasn't happened yet. It hasn't.
Yeah.
They're front running a little bit of the cost.
And honestly, I'm not one of those people. I wouldn't complain about it because I'm a big picture person, and I think that's a today reaction mindset.
I've worked with some contractors already trying to say that, this is more expensive now. We're like, wait a minute.
No, it's not.
Not yet.
Yeah, we're constantly having
steel and wood hasn't hit yet, bruh.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, we'll see. I just think it's more of the anticipation. It's the big word here is uncertainty. Mm-hmm. That's what's really going on. But yeah, the market gets crushed. I mean, the printer's going to go on one of these days. I mean, we saw it during COVID. Remember, right before COVID, and during COVID, it was just like, the market was crazy. And then all of a sudden, they just started crushing rates down. And then and then the market went nuts, and now
Yep.
the prices inflation just blew up. This next time. I mean, they're gonna have to print even more money.
I was gonna say it's inevitable. The printer is gonna have to go back on.
Yeah.
Okay, that's something interesting. You sparked something I wanted to show.
Yeah.
Pending home sales you talked about during COVID. When you look historically, since 2017 to now, the most amount of pending home sales that fell through were in March of 2020. So during COVID,
Well,
16
that's the initial
beginning.
hit when everybody was just.
and everyone freaked out. Everyone canceled their. I mean, do you remember like
yeah.
the iBuyers selling off their inventory?
They
like
were paying
crazy.
to get out of
Well,
to get out of
and we had deals.
We done too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm talking about this with institutional buyers that we were
Oh, yeah.
partnered with. Sorry, we need to cancel, and it was literally less than 2 weeks before closing. We're just like, oh my goodness, it was crazy.
That was
So-
like a scary 30 days, right? Because
Yeah, it was.
like
It
the
was
world
uncertain.
stopped.
But ever since then, have we had any certainty in the real estate
If you
market?
had if you had the foresight to just bought everything possible
Oh,
at that point,
man.
you're under contract with hundreds of properties and kept them right through that time.
You
Did
would
like
have.
60
You would
day
have.
closes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
You could have just flipped
Smashed
the
it.
contracts. You wouldn't
Yeah.
even need
You
to
just
perform on it.
smashed it.
Yeah. It's literally like weeks after it just started. Like people were like, "Let's go out
It was-
and buy."
It was the fastest turnaround. I don't know about you guys. The fastest turnaround I've ever seen, been a part of. It was literally like a light switch.
Okay,
Because the
so
rates went down.
Yeah, it was just and just the demand. It went from I'll pay to get out of this, cancel to buy. Oh my gosh, prices. Oh my gosh.
okay, so what's going to happen next? What's going to happen when they fire up the money printer next? And that is where I'm looking at home prices, which are still elevated, and wage growth, which has somewhat remained stagnant. And I'm going like, what's going to change?
We're gonna see 1% interest rates.
I don't think
That's the
so.
only way affordability is
I
coming
would
back
be
in.
shocked.
I mean, if they lower the rates to negative, you'll see pretty low. I mean, they're gonna have to. It's gonna be scary. You're gonna see some pretty massive debasement. We'll see what happens, but
Hey, take
I
that
mean,
money and put it in deflationary assets.
you'd imagine how much they printed in 2021 and 2022ish. They're
And
gonna have it's gonna have
2020.
to be like triple that, and that was like 5 trillion. So like another 15 trillion to make sure that
to put
the
into
economy
circulation
doesn't
and liquidity.
crash.
Yep,
If they do, just try to grab as much of it as you can.
exactly. Take advantage
Money
of it.
goes somewhere. It spreads around.
Yeah.
Yeah, take that money that's inflationary and put it in a deflationary asset. I mean, even if it's real estate, gold, all those things, right? They'll move with the market. So, my simple.
Boats and cars.
Oh yeah.
So most people do, right?
Just go buy another thing. Go out to dinner again.
Thanks for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed today's content. If you have anything to add to the conversation, be sure to leave us a comment, hit that like button, and make sure your notifications are turned on so you're updated of our new episodes.